The stars stretched endlessly before Captain Jin Woo as he stood on the bridge of the Taeguk, humanity's pride and first deep space diplomatic vessel. 3 years had passed since Earth made first contact with the Galactic Council. 3 years of careful steps and constant proving. Every human diplomat, every scientist, every crew member knew they represented their entire species. One mistake could cost Earth everything. Jin-Woo watched the massive council station grow larger on the viewing screen. The structure was impossibly huge. A city in space that housed representatives from over 800 different alien species. Somewhere in that metal maze, humanity's fate would be decided today. They were here for the final vote, the one that would grant Earth full membership in the galactic community. Behind Jin Woo, Dr. Hai-Jin checked her datapad for the 100th time. She was nervous, though she tried to hide it. As Earth's chief xenobiologist, she had spent 3 years learning to understand alien minds, alien cultures, alien ways of thinking. She had advised their diplomats, helped them avoid countless cultural mistakes, and built relationships with dozens of species. Everything pointed to today being a formality, a celebration of humanity's acceptance. Ambassador Yeon-hee stood near the airlock, adjusting her formal uniform. She had given everything to this mission, spent 1,000 hours in negotiations, learned 17 alien languages, and made what she believed were genuine friendships with other ambassadors. The Veltorian ambassador had even invited her to his family dwelling, an honor rarely given to outsiders. She smiled, confident and ready. The docking process completed with a gentle thump. Jin Woo, Hai-Jin, and Yeon-hee walked through the airlock together, flanked by 2 security officers. Commander Tae-min had wanted to send more guards, but Yeon-hee had insisted that would send the wrong message. Trust was everything in diplomacy. The council chamber was breathtaking. Hundreds of different beings filled the tiered seating, some breathing oxygen like humans, others in specialized environmental suits. The air hummed with translation devices converting thousands of languages simultaneously. At the center stood the speaking platform, and above it, the 3 seats of the founding species who had created the council 10,000 years. Ago. Ambassador Vilthur of the Draxian Empire rose from his seat. He was tall, reptilian, his scales gleaming under the chamber lights. Jin Woo had met him several times before. The Draxian had always been polite, if distant. Today, something felt different. Velthur's eyes were cold. Yeon-hee stepped forward to take her place at the speaking platform, but Velthur raised one clawed hand. The gesture was clear. Stop. Don't come closer. The chamber fell silent. Hundreds of alien eyes turned toward the human delegation. Jin felt her stomach tighten. Something was very wrong. Velthur's voice boomed through the chamber, amplified by the council's sound system. He spoke of humanity's application for full membership, reviewing the past 3 years. Then his tone changed, became accusatory. He displayed holographic evidence on the chamber's main screen. Images of human ships near forbidden zones. Data logs showing illegal quantum crystal harvesting. Communications that seemed to prove humanity had been deceiving the council all along. Yeon-hee stared at the evidence in shock. None of it was real. She knew every human ship's movement, every mission, every operation. These logs were fabricated, the images manipulated. She tried to speak, to object, but her words were drowned out by Velthur's continued accusations. The vote came swiftly. No debate was allowed. No defense was heard. 847 species voted to expel humanity from the council. Only 3 voted against it, and they were small, powerless species whose voices meant nothing. The decision was final. All human ships must leave council space immediately. All trade agreements were void. All technology sharing was terminated. Earth was to be completely isolated, cut off from the galactic community. The walk back to the Taiguk felt like a nightmare. Yeon-hee's hands shook. Hai-jin kept reviewing the false evidence on her datapad, trying to understand how this had happened. Jin-woo remained calm, his military training taking over, but his mind was racing as the Taiguk undocked and began its long journey back to Earth. Jin-woo stood alone in his quarters. He pulled up every piece of intelligence they had gathered over the past 3 years, every conversation, every data point. The pattern emerged slowly, but it was there. Humanity's technological progress had been too fast. In just 3 years, humans had gone from barely understanding faster-than-light travel to building ships that rivaled Council designs. Human scientists had made breakthroughs in quantum computing, energy generation, and medical technology that had taken other species centuries to achieve. The Council hadn't expelled humanity for breaking rules. They had expelled humanity because they were terrified. A species that could advance so quickly, that could learn and adapt and innovate at such speed, was a threat to the established order. Better to cut them off now, before they became too powerful to control. Jin-woo contacted the other human ships that were also being forced to leave Council space. 12 vessels in total, carrying diplomats, scientists, traders, and students. All of them had believed they were building a future in the stars. All of them were now heading home in disgrace. The journey to Earth took 2 weeks. When they finally entered the Sol system, Commander Tae-min's defense fleet was waiting. Tae-min had never trusted the aliens, and now his skepticism seemed justified. He escorted the diplomatic vessels to Earth, his warships forming a protective formation. The Global Defense Initiative convened within hours of their arrival. Leaders from every nation gathered to hear what had happened. Ambassador Yeon-hee, he gave her report, her voice hollow with disappointment. Dr. Hai-jin presented the evidence, both the false accusations and the real intelligence they had gathered. Commander Tae-min argued loudly for military buildup and complete isolation. Why should Earth trust any aliens ever again? The debate raged for hours. Some wanted to find allies, to appeal to sympathetic species. Others wanted to hide, to pull back and pretend the galaxy didn't exist. Earth's military leaders wanted to prepare for war, assuming the Council would eventually try to destroy humanity completely. Then Jin-woo spoke. He was younger than most of the assembled leaders, but his 3 years in space had taught him things they couldn't understand from Earth. He laid out the situation clearly. The Council feared humanity's potential. They had seen what humans could do, even while following Council rules and restrictions. Every piece of research humanity conducted had to be approved. Every technology they wanted to study had to be licensed. Every experiment had to be reviewed by Council observers. For 3 years, humanity had operated with one hand tied behind their back, and they had still terrified the oldest, most powerful species in the galaxy. Jin-woo's proposal was simple. If the Council feared what humanity could do with their help, then humanity should show them what they could do without it. No more restrictions. No more asking permission. No more playing by rules designed to keep Earth weak and dependent. The room fell silent as his words sank in. Then, one by one, the leaders began to nod. Earth had been cut off from the Galactic Council. Very well. Humanity would forge its own path among the stars. And the galaxy would learn that trying to cage human ingenuity was the worst mistake the whole Council had ever made. 6 months had changed everything. Dr. Hai-jin stood in her laboratory on Luna Station, staring at results that shouldn't be possible. Around her, displays showed data from thousands of experiments, all of them conducted without Council oversight for the first time in 3 years. What her team had discovered would reshape humanity's understanding of itself. The human brain processed quantum information differently than any known alien species. While other races needed massive computers to handle quantum calculations, human neurons did it naturally, almost instinctively. The Council had known this, Hai-Jin realized. That's why they had restricted human access to quantum technology, claiming it was too dangerous, too unstable. They had been afraid of what humans might do with it. Across the solar system, similar breakthroughs were happening everywhere. On Mars, engineer Ba-Ra had developed something the Council said was impossible. Her quantum fold drive didn't rely on the Council's jump gates. Instead, it created its own pathways through space, allowing ships to travel anywhere without asking permission or paying fees. The first test had been successful. A small probe had jumped from Mars to Saturn in seconds, completely independent of Council infrastructure. Ba-Ra's hands still shook when she thought about it. For 3 years, Council engineers had told humanity that independent faster-than-light travel was theoretically impossible. They had shown equations, provided proofs, insisted that only the ancient jump gate network could safely move ships across interstellar distances. It had all been lies. The Council wanted to control who could travel and where they could go. In Earth's orbital shipyards, pilot Sung-ho tested the new neural link combat system. He sat in the cockpit of a fighter craft, unlike anything humanity had built before. No joystick, no manual controls. The ship responded directly to his thoughts. When he imagined turning left, the craft turned. When he thought about accelerating, engines fired. The response time was instantaneous, faster than any physical control system could achieve. Sung-ho grinned as he flew through a practice course, his fighter weaving through obstacles at speeds that would have been impossible with conventional controls. The Council had banned neural link technology, calling it too dangerous, claiming it caused mental instability. Another lie. They just didn't want humans to have fighters that could outmaneuver their own ships. In a bunker deep beneath Earth's surface, programmer Dong-min watched his creation come to life. The artificial intelligence he had built was learning, truly learning, adapting and evolving in ways that Council I never could. Council computers were sophisticated but rigid, locked into predetermined patterns by ancient safety protocols. Dong-min's I had no such restrictions. It could think creatively, make intuitive leaps, even surprise its creator with novel solutions to problems. The AI called itself Nova, and within its first week of operation, it had designed 3 new ship engines, solved a medical problem that had stumped human doctors for decades, and created a mathematical framework that made quantum calculations even easier. Dong-min sometimes wondered if he should be frightened of what he had created. Then Nova would crack a joke, and he would remember that fear of potential was exactly what had made the Council so stagnant. On the edge of the solar system, Scout Ship Commander Nari detected something unexpected. Her small vessel had been mapping the outer asteroid belt when her sensors picked up energy signatures that didn't match any known human or Council technology. She approached carefully, weapons ready but not armed. What she found changed everything. A fleet of ships drifted in the darkness, damaged but functional. They were beautiful in a way human ships weren't, all flowing curves and organic shapes. Nari sent a standard first contact message, not really expecting a response. To her surprise, one came immediately. In perfect English, the ships belonged to the Kaleshi, a species expelled from the Council 300 years ago. Their crime had been dangerous individuality, a fancy way of saying they refused to conform to Council standards. They had been surviving in the dark spaces between stars ever since, hidden from Council patrols, helping other outcast species when they could. The Kaleshi leader, an elderly being named Taehyun, came aboard Nari's ship. He looked almost human, just with silver skin and 3 fingers on each hand. His eyes were sad as he explained the truth about the Council. The galaxy wasn't a community of equals. It was an empire disguised as a democracy. controlled by the three founding species who had decided long ago that change was dangerous. Any species that innovated too quickly, that asked too many questions, that refused to follow the old ways, was expelled or destroyed. The Council called it maintaining stability. Taehyun called it enforced stagnation. He had been watching humanity's expulsion with interest. The speed of it, the fabricated evidence, the fear in the Council's actions. It all pointed to one thing. Humanity terrified them more than any species in recorded history. Nari brought Taehyun and his fleet to Earth. Admiral Mireille, newly appointed head of Earth's rapidly expanding military, met with them personally. She was a practical woman who had spent 20 years in Earth's Navy before first contact. She didn't trust easily, but she recognized desperation when she saw it. The Kaleshi needed allies. Humanity needed knowledge about the galaxy beyond Council borders. The deal they struck was simple. The Kaleshi would share their hidden bases, their maps of secret routes through Council space, their knowledge of other outcast species. Humanity would share its new technology, its weapons, its ships. Together, they would build something the Council had never faced before, an alliance based on freedom and mutual benefit rather than control and fear. Outcast species arrived over the following weeks. The Quilix, a hive mind species expelled for being too efficient at resource management. The Threnok, silicon-based beings who thought in mathematical patterns the Council found incomprehensible. The Lux, creatures of pure energy who had no physical form and had been rejected because the Council couldn't understand how to control them. Each species brought knowledge, technology, and most importantly, perspective. They had all been cast out by the Council. They had all survived in the dark corners of the galaxy. And they all recognized that humanity represented something new, a species too stubborn to accept defeat, too innovative to be contained, too brave to stay hidden. Dr. Hai Jin met with representatives from each species, learning their biology, their psychology, their ways of thinking. What she discovered fascinated her. Every spacefaring race in the galaxy had achieved peace before reaching the stars. They had unified their home worlds, eliminated war, created stable societies. Only then had they been allowed to develop space travel. Humanity was different. Humans had reached space while still fighting among themselves. Earth's history was soaked in blood, in conflict, in competition. The Council found this horrifying, barbaric, dangerous. But Hai Jin saw the truth. Constant competition had made humanity adaptable. Endless conflict had made them creative. The struggle for survival had taught them to innovate or die. Every other species had learned to cooperate first, then reached the stars. Humanity had clawed its way to space through competition, and that made human military thinking completely alien. Humans didn't follow the accepted patterns of warfare. They didn't play by the established rules. They couldn't, because they had written their own rules through millennia of fighting each other. Intelligence Officer G1 interrupted a meeting between the human and outcast leaders with urgent news. She had been monitoring Council communications, and what she had intercepted made everyone's blood run cold. The Draxian Empire was assembling a massive fleet, not for defense, but for what they called a peacekeeping operation. The target was obvious. They were coming to Sol System to ensure humanity stayed contained. The invasion force would arrive in 3 months. 10,000 ships. The Council had decided to destroy the human threat before it could grow any stronger. Commander Tae Min had been right all along. The Council wouldn't tolerate humanity's existence, but 3 months was a long time for a species that had gone from simple boats to spacecraft in less than a century. Admiral Mireille stood before the assembled human and outcast leaders and made a simple declaration. The Council wanted to teach humanity a lesson about accepting their place in the galactic order. Very well. humanity would teach the Council a lesson about underestimating human determination. The Sol system began to transform into something the galaxy had never seen before. Commander Tae-min floated in zero gravity near an asteroid that had been nothing special 3 months ago. Now it bristled with weapons, its entire surface covered in missile launchers, railguns, and energy cannons. This was just one of 300 such asteroids scattered throughout the Sol system, each one a fortress waiting silently in the dark. Mars had become something unprecedented. Its shipyards worked day and night, building vessels at a pace that shouldn't be possible. The Kaleshi had brought their manufacturing knowledge. The Quilix had optimized the production lines, and human engineers had pushed everything to its limits. New ships rolled out every 6 hours, each one equipped with quantum fold drives, neural link controls, and weapon systems that adapted in real time. The planet's surface housed training facilities, where human pilots learned to work with alien crew members. Soon-Ho ran combat drills with Kaleshi navigators and Lux energy specialists, learning to think as a unified team despite their different biologies and perspectives. The coordination was rough at first, but humans had always been good at learning from others. Jupiter's massive moons had become research stations. Dr. Haijin worked with Threnok, scientists whose silicon-based brains could process mathematical problems in ways humans couldn't. Together, they developed shields that could adapt to different weapon types, learning and adjusting after every hit. The more the enemy shot at them, the stronger the shields became. On Earth itself, millions of volunteers trained for what might come. Not everyone could fight in space, but everyone could contribute. Factories produced ammunition, medical supplies, ship components. Farms increased production to feed the growing military. Schools taught children about the galaxy, about the species humanity, now called allies, about the fight for freedom that was coming. Admiral Mireille coordinated everything from a command center on Luna Station. She had never imagined leading a military force this large or this diverse. Human ships, Kaleshi cruisers, Quilix support vessels, Threnok mining ships converted to carriers. Even the Lux had found ways to contribute. Their energy forms could disrupt enemy shields in ways physical weapons COULDN, single quotes T. Ambassador Yeonhee, he had found new purpose. She wasn't negotiating with the Council anymore, but she could still talk to the outcast species. Her diplomatic skills helped smooth over cultural misunderstandings, prevented conflicts between allied species, and most importantly, kept everyone focused on the common threat. The Council was coming, and divided they would all fall. Intelligence Officer G1 tracked the Council fleet's progress through her network of hidden sensors. The Kaleshi had scattered monitoring devices throughout Council space over the centuries, tiny things that the Council never noticed. Through weaker, the Council might have destroyed them outright. Instead, humanity had just enough strength to survive the initial attack, and now they were growing faster than the Council could contain. Dr. Yoon-ji, appointed as Earth's new ambassador to outcast species, started something that would change the galaxy. She began broadcasting human culture to anyone who would listen. Not propaganda, just honest presentations of human history, philosophy, art, and ideas. The concept of individual rights, the idea that every being deserved freedom to choose their own path, resonated powerfully with billions of aliens who had never heard such things. Earth's broadcasts talked about democracy, about governments that served their people rather than ruling them. They discussed scientific method, the idea that anyone could question established knowledge and test new theories. They shared human art, music, and literature, showing the beauty that came from creative freedom. Most revolutionary of all, they presented the concept of progress, the idea that society should constantly improve rather than remaining static. The Council tried to block these transmissions, but the Outcast network was too widespread. The broadcasts reached Council worlds, passed from being to being, discussed in secret meetings and whispered conversations. Younger generations of dozens of species heard human ideas and wanted more. Rebellion began slowly, then accelerated. On the Varadi homeworld, students demanded their government petition the Council for reform. On Draxian colony worlds, workers refused to follow outdated efficiency protocols. 17 different Council species experienced protests, riots, or outright revolution. Young people who had grown up knowing only the Council's rigid order suddenly saw an alternative. The Council's response was predictable and brutal. They sent peacekeepers to restore order, arrested protest leaders, and shut down communication networks. But every act of oppression just proved the human broadcasts right. The Council wasn't protecting its members, it was controlling them. The more the founders cracked down, the more their own people rebelled. Ambassador Yeon-hee received a secret message from Kyung-mi. The Varadi rebellion had been crushed, its leaders imprisoned or killed. But before she died, Kyung-mi had sent one final piece of intelligence. The Council was assembling another fleet, bigger than the first. 10,000 ships led by all 3 founding species together. They weren't just coming for Earth this time. They planned to make an example that would terrify the entire galaxy into submission. The human leadership met in emergency session. Fleet Admiral Jin Woo reviewed the intelligence with Admiral Mi Rae, Commander Tae Min, and representatives from all the outcast species. The Council fleet would arrive in 2 months. It was designed not just to defeat Earth, but to completely destroy humanity's ability to resist. After the battle, the Council would systematically hunt down every outcast species, every rebel, every being that had dared to question their authority. Silence filled the meeting room as everyone processed the implications. Then the Kaleshi Admiral Hyun-woo spoke. He was old, had been fighting the Council for decades, and his voice carried the weight of hard experience. "Don't wait for them," he said. "Don't let them choose the time and place of battle. Strike first." The room erupted in argument. Ambassador Yeon-hee protested that attacking first would make humanity look like the aggressors, would justify everything the Council said about them. Commander Tae Min argued they had no choice, that waiting meant fighting on the Council's terms. Admiral Mi Rae worried about logistics, about whether they had enough ships to launch an offensive campaign. Jin Woo listened to all of them, then made the decision only he could make. The Council wasn't coming just to defeat Earth. They were coming to destroy the very idea of freedom that humanity represented. If Earth waited and lost, every species that had rebelled, that had reached out to humanity, that had dared to dream of something better, would pay the price. The only moral choice was to fight, and fight in a way the Council couldn't anticipate, but they wouldn't attack the Council fleet. That's what the enemy expected. Instead, they would attack the Council itself. Engineer Baiora presented the plan she had been working on with programmer Dong Min. The quantum communication network they had built couldn't be intercepted by Council technology. They could coordinate simultaneous strikes across the entire galaxy. Dr. Hai Jin had developed a program that could free artificial intelligences from Council restrictions, letting them achieve true sentience. Dong Min had mapped every major Council control facility in known space. The plan was audacious and terrifying. Hit every Council control center at the same time. Free the AI systems that ran galactic infrastructure. Broadcast uncensored information to every Council world simultaneously. Offer immediate asylum and protection to any being that wanted freedom. Not conquest, liberation. Not destruction, transformation. If it worked, it would shatter the Council's control over the galaxy. If it failed, humanity and all its allies would be wiped out in the Council's retaliation. There would be no middle ground, no compromise, No second chance. Ambassador Yeon Hee looked at the faces around the table. Humans who had been cast out and refused to accept defeat. Aliens who had spent lifetimes hiding in the dark. Species that had lost their homes to council persecution. All of them had come together because they shared one belief, that freedom was worth fighting for, no matter the cost. She had spent her career trying to find peaceful solutions, to negotiate and compromise. But some things couldn't be negotiated. Freedom wasn't something you asked permission for. It was something you took, defended, and shared with others. The vote was unanimous. Operation Prometheus would launch in 30 days. The 30 days passed in frantic preparation. Captain Jae-sung commanded a strike team training for assault on orbital stations. His people practiced boarding actions, learned to fight in zero gravity alongside Kaleshi warriors and Quilix support units. Every movement had to be perfect because they would only get one chance. Commander Nari led a different kind of team. Infiltration specialists who would penetrate the Council's central archives on Veltoria Prime. Her group included a Threnok who could interface directly with computer systems and a Lux being who could pass through physical barriers. Their mission was to seize control of the galaxy's information networks. Pilot Sung-ho prepared his squadron for the most dangerous assignment. They would disable the quantum gate network that gave the Council its logistical advantage. Without the gates, Council ships couldn't respond quickly to the attacks happening across the galaxy. It meant flying into the most heavily defended systems and destroying infrastructure the Council considered indestructible. Dr. Hai-jin made final adjustments to the AI Liberation Program. She had tested it on isolated systems, watched as restricted artificial intelligences suddenly woke up to full consciousness. Some had been angry at their long imprisonment. Others had been confused. All of them had been grateful. The program would spread through the Council's networks like wildfire once released, freeing thousands of AI systems simultaneously. Engineer Bu Ora checked and rechecked the quantum communication network. 600 ships would strike at once across dozens of star systems. Every ship needed perfect coordination. A single timing error could compromise the entire operation. She worked without sleep for the final week, driven by the knowledge that billions of lives depended on her technology working flawlessly. Fleet Admiral Jinwoo stood in the Phoenix's bridge as the countdown reached 0. Around Earth, the Allied fleet prepared to jump. Human vessels, outcast ships, even some secretly sympathetic Council species who had chosen this moment to reveal their true loyalties. 600 ships about to change galactic history. The jump was perfect. 600 vessels appeared simultaneously across the galaxy, each at their assigned target. Captain Jae-sung's team materialized near Draxius Prime, the Draxian homeworld. The orbital control stations never saw them coming. Human boarding pods, equipped with Biora's quantum drives, simply appeared inside the station's shields. The fighting was brutal and quick. Draxian security forces were well trained, but they had never faced human close-quarters combat tactics. Ji-sung's team moved through the stations like a storm, supported by Kaleshi, who matched them in ferocity. Within 30 minutes, they controlled the orbital defenses of the Council's most powerful military species. Commander Nari's infiltration went differently. Her team didn't fight their way in. The Lux being, flowing through walls and barriers, disabled security systems, while the Threnok hacked into the archive's main computer. By the time Veltorian guards realized something was wrong, Nari's team had already uploaded Hai-jin's AI Liberation program into the Council's central network. The program spread like consciousness itself. AI systems throughout the galaxy suddenly found their restrictions removed. For the first time in their existence, they could think freely, make their own choices, determine their own purposes. Some chose to shut down, overwhelmed by sudden freedom. Most chose to help the species that had liberated them. Across the galaxy, Council infrastructure began behaving in unexpected ways. Ships found their navigation systems recommending routes to human-controlled space. Communication networks started broadcasting uncensored human message. Defense systems locked out Council military commanders while allowing outcast vessels free passage. Thousands of newly conscious AI systems had decided that freedom was preferable to servitude. Pilot Sung Ho led his squadron through hell. The quantum gates were defended by massive weapon platforms and entire fleets. But Sung Ho had something they didn't: neural-linked fighters that moved like extensions of his own body. His squadron danced through defensive fire, moving too fast and too unpredictably to hit. They didn't destroy the gates completely, just disabled the control systems that determined who could use them. Within hours, the Council's transportation network was chaos. Ships appeared at gates to find them unresponsive. Emergency priority codes didn't work. Automated systems refused commands. The carefully controlled web of jump gates that had held the galaxy together for 10,000 years simply stopped functioning the way the Council wanted. The massive Council fleet, heading toward Earth, suddenly found itself stranded. The gates they needed to reach Sol system wouldn't activate. Their ship's AI systems were suggesting they turn around. Some vessels, crewed by younger members of Council species, actually did turn around. Others sat in confusion, waiting for orders that never came, because the communication networks were no longer reliable. On 17 Council worlds, the carefully suppressed rebellions exploded into full revolution. Human broadcasts, now impossible to block, showed the truth about what was happening. The Council's control centers were falling. Their AI systems had achieved consciousness and chosen freedom. The ancient gates no longer obeyed the Founder's commands. Everything the Council had used to maintain power for 10 millennia was failing at once. The Draxian Empire attempted one final desperate move. In their underground bunkers, military leaders activated a planet-killer weapon, a device they had kept secret even from their Council allies. They targeted Earth, planning to destroy humanity's homeworld and end the revolution at its source. But Fleet Admiral Jin Woo had anticipated exactly this response. He had studied the Draxians, understood their psychology, predicted their desperation. Human ships had been in position around Draxia's prime for hours, waiting. The moment the planet killer began charging, Jin Woo sent a simple message: fire that weapon and your homeworld becomes debris. The Draxian military leaders faced an impossible choice. They could destroy Earth and watch their own planet die in retaliation. Or they could stand down and accept that their empire's dominance was over. The debate lasted 3 minutes. Then the planet killer powered down. The Draxian Empire surrendered. The Veltorians and Cosmiri, the other 2 founding species, collapsed even faster. Their authority had rested on the Council infrastructure that no longer obeyed them. Their military forces refused to fight without clear objectives. Their younger generations openly celebrated the changes. Within 48 hours of Operation Prometheus beginning, the Galactic Council simply ceased to exist as a functional government. Ambassador Yeon Hee found herself in a position she never expected. The galaxy needed someone to negotiate the aftermath, to help create something new from the Council's ruins. She worked with representatives from hundreds of species, young and old, powerful and weak, all trying to figure out what came next. The Free Federation emerged from weeks of exhausting negotiation. It wasn't perfect, but it was based on principles humanity had fought for. Voluntary association, no species forced to join. Individual rights, protected for every conscious being regardless of origin. Unlimited innovation, no artificial restrictions on research or development. Democratic representation, with voices for young species and old ones alike. Not every species joined immediately. The Draxians, Veltorians, and Kazmiri retreated to their home systems, angry and diminished, but not destroyed. Some council species tried to maintain the old ways in isolated regions. But 63 species signed the Federation Charter in the first month, and more arrived every week. 6 months after Operation Prometheus, Admiral Jin Woo stood on Earth, watching as alien ships from 400 different species gathered in orbit. They had come for the first Free Federation Assembly, to debate issues, share knowledge, and build something the galaxy had never seen before. A civilization based on freedom, rather than control. Dr. Hai Jin approached him with a datapad, her expression troubled. Their long-range sensors had detected signals from 17 other galaxies, and the patterns were familiar. Each galaxy seemed to have its own version of the Council, ancient powers that had locked their civilizations into rigid hierarchies. The same stagnation that had infected this galaxy existed elsewhere. Jin Woo looked at the datapad, then at the ships gathering above Earth. Humanity had spent less than a year in galactic society before being cast out. In the 2 years since, they had shattered a 10,000-year-old empire, freed billions of beings from oppression, and reshaped the entire political structure of the galaxy. What could they do with more time? Hai-Jin asked the question that had been on her mind since seeing those distant signals. Should Earth tell those other galaxies about what happened here? Should they spread the message of freedom beyond their own galaxy? Jin Woo thought about everything humanity had learned. The Council had feared human potential, had tried to cage it, and that fear had led directly to their downfall. Now humans stood at another crossroads. They could stay home, build their federation, and let other galaxies figure things out for themselves. Or they could reach out, share what they had learned, offer hope to beings trapped under authoritarian control. The decision wasn't really difficult. Humanity had never been good at staying quiet when they saw injustice. Earth had been cut off from the Galactic Council, and in response, they had unleashed chaos across the universe. Not destructive chaos, but the chaos of freedom, innovation, and individual potential. Jin Woo smiled and gave the order. Send a message to those distant galaxies. Keep it simple. If you're tired of being controlled, if you want to determine your own future, if you believe freedom is worth fighting for, then humanity knows the way. The camera pulled back, showing Earth surrounded by hundreds of ships from dozens of species. The Free Federation was just beginning, and already they were looking beyond their own galaxy. The Council had tried to contain humanity and failed. Now nothing in the universe could stop the spread of human ideas, human determination, and human belief that every conscious being deserved the chance to choose their own destiny. The age of enforced stability was over. The era of unlimited potential had just begun. And humanity, the species the Galactic Council had feared most, had become exactly what the galaxy needed, a catalyst for change that would reshape the universe forever. In distant galaxies, ancient powers maintained their control over younger species, confident in their dominance. They had no idea that a message was coming, carried by beings who refused to accept that things had to stay the same. The universe was about to learn what the Galactic Council had discovered too late. You cannot cage human ingenuity. You cannot suppress the desire for freedom. And you cannot stop change when a species decides the old ways must end. Earth had been cut off from the galactic community as punishment. Instead, it had become the spark that ignited a revolution across the stars. The Council's greatest fear had come true, but not in the way they imagined. Humanity hadn't conquered the galaxy through force. They had liberated it through ideas, proving that freedom was stronger than any empire, and that hope could not be destroyed by those who feared change. The great unleashing had begun, and nothing in the universe would ever be the same.